Bismillahirrahmanirrahim and Assalamu alaikum. Today we have taken up Dr. Faustus by Christopher Marlowe, and we are going to discuss imperialist tendencies in Dr. Faustus by Christopher Marlowe. Although this play is from Renaissance literature, but this dimension is lately been discussed a lot, because when the post-colonial literature is discussed, so the post-colonial critics or the post-colonial writers, they try to see the aspects in all those pieces of literature which have previously been written, because they tell us about the mindset, they tell us about the dimensions, the way people thought in that era about the colonial or imperialist tendencies or thoughts, and later on these thoughts or these tendencies were brought into the actual scenarios or actual positions. Now, when we start the play, we come to know that Faustus is the doctor of theology, and he has gained a lot of knowledge, and he is at the extreme level of his knowledge, but he is not satisfied with the knowledge he already has or already had. What he wants more. He wants to have something beyond all these knowledge. Now he is dissatisfied, because this shows us that if he wants more, so he is dissatisfied with everything he has. And it is because the way he has learned, the way he has been taught, and the way he has gained knowledge, all these things have been in the context of Europe, because he has been a Christian. So he has learned Christianity as a religion, the Christian scriptures, and he has read about all those things which the church allowed in that era. Because when we were reading literature, or when we were reading the history of literature, so the church was very much dominant, and church was the authority to allow or disallow anything. So we come to the conclusion, or we get this idea, that all the branches of knowledge that were taught in the schools or in the churches or anywhere, formal or informal, they were in the scope of this Christianity, and they were not beyond Christian perspectives. So that is why he wants to learn more. Now here comes a question, and the question is why he wants to learn necromancy. What is that has impelled or compelled Dr. Faustus to learn necromancy? What is there? Or why necromancy? So we come to know that, although from the books we have come to know, this is of course, that in the Renaissance and in the later periods, whatever was discussed, it was in the Christian perspective. But when the Renaissance period flourished, so people from different parts of the Europe, they brought knowledge from Asia, they brought knowledge from Africa, they brought knowledge from America, they brought knowledge from the Caribbean region. So it means that everything got opened, but church was against everything. But the people of the Europe came to know that there is a lot beyond the boundaries of Europe. But this was beyond Christianity. So church was against it, because church saw Muslim and Islam as something hostile, as something not good. Because to the church, or to the people of the Europe, Muhammad was a learned magician. He was termed as magician and astronomer. So this gives us the answer of the first question, why he wants to learn necromancy. And by necromancy he wants to learn something beyond the scope of Christianity. And we can see that when he is lured to learn all these knowledge or the branches of knowledge, Mephistopheles says, "Go forward, Faustus, in that famous art wherein all the nature's treasury is contained." Now by that famous art means what? We know medicine, or this period of medicine was started in Arab. We know chemistry or alchemy was started in Arabian part. We know that the scientific things, or whatever we call today science, the basic foundation of science was laid down by the Arabian people. Similarly, spices and all such things. So all these branches or all these foundations were brought in by the Arabian people. So that is Mephistopheles calls it famous art, and that is why Faustus wants to learn this. So we get the idea what actually is necromancy, why he wants to learn. But what is the ultimate end of this knowledge? Faustus wants to learn, but why he wants to learn this? What is the actual goal of Faustus? So Mephistopheles understands, and we, by reading and rereading the play, we also understand that the actual or the basic aim of Faustus to learn all these things is that he wants to have an unconquerable power so that he can conquer and rule this world. This is the main aim of Faustus, and this is what we see or we hear the echoes of all these concepts when Mephistopheles say, hold take this book, pursue it thoroughly. The iterating of these lines bring gold. Pronounce this thrice devotedly to thyself, and men in armor shall appear to thee, ready to execute what thou desirest. This clearly tells us that the basic aim, what Mephistopheles learned from the motives of Faustus, is that the Faustus wants to conquer the world. He wants to have the golds, he wants to have all those resources of the world. Why? Because he wants to be the king. So this, when he learns this, when he hears this, Faustus becomes happy. And then what he says, and in this happiness, Faustus tells everyone that all the things that move between the quiet poles shall be at my command. Emperors and kings are but obeyed in their several provinces, nor can they raise the wind or rend the clouds, but his domain that exceeds in this, stretched as far as death, the mind of man. So this is what tells us that Faustus wants to control the whole world. Faustus wants to have a rule on the world because he wants to attain something beyond the boundaries of Europe, beyond the knowledge of what actually was there in Europe. And then again afterwards he says, I'll fly them to India for gold, high pyramids that Julius Caesar brought from Africa. From Venus shall they drag huge Argosius, and from America the golden fleece. Now what this tells us? This tells us the materialist demands of Faustus. What he wants to achieve the material gains. He wants to achieve golds, pyramids from India, from different parts of the world. And this tells us the tendency and the mind of every European person. Because after so many years, like after 200 or 300 years, this actually happened. Like the Europe did control these parts of the world, and they actually brought gold from different parts of the world. From Africa they brought ivories and some and few things related to this. From India they brought gold and spices, and from Venus. So this is what he is trying to tell us, or he's trying to convey us, that this is going to happen. Like from Faustus we foresee what actually happened, and this is the mindset, how this mindset developed of a common European man. And then towards the east he points out Beelzebub himself, king of burning hell, is in essence from the east, prince of east. So it means from the east, he is calling it the east as a like the residing place of Lucifer and Mephistopheles. Why? Because there are so many things. So this literally tells us that Faustus was not hungry or was not in the quest for knowledge only. Why? Because he wanted knowledge that could give him power, and that power would, or like he could then turn this power into a universal access by which he would be able to control history and future. Like what? How history? He was the person who brought Helen of Troy, who he wanted to to visit, or he actually visited the court of Alexander, and towards the future he wanted gold and like uh, different parts of the world having different riches, and he wanted all of them. So this is what actually the motive behind the learning or the quest of Faustus, that he wanted to learn. With that learning would come power, and with that power he would control the whole world. So this is what tells us that Faustus is actually the embodiment of every Western mind, every Western common man, and they wanted to control the world. They had this tendency in mind that they would go on to control the whole world. And from this play we come to know that the seeds of imperialism and colonialism were like culminating in the minds of every European since the Renaissance period, and later on, slowly and gradually, these seeds germinated and then they flourished, and we see the phenomena of colonialism. I hope I have conveyed the basic motive of this lecture, and I have conveyed whatever can be read in between the lines of Dr. Faustus. Thank you very much, and stay connected.